Welcome to Eastnor Castle, the spiritual home of Land Rover for many generations. This is the P300 Defender, and unlike the P400 Defender that we drove recently on the road, that was a fully loaded car with all the toys. This is an SE, so one up from entry level, and it's on passive suspension. So if you are an off-roading enthusiast, this is the test you want to watch. Can this new Defender really follow the tyre treads of its ancestors? Now, Land Rover has been using the grounds at Eastnor Castle to develop its vehicles since the 1960s. And over the years, it's developed some very challenging surfaces, obviously, to create the latest and greatest of the Land Rover breed. Though what we're driving today is actually a series of trails that haven't been used for about a decade. They're very challenging, they're very overgrown, and there's been a considerable amount of rain over the past day or so as well. So we'll really be testing out the wading depths of these Defenders. So here we are in a convoy of what could be described as, I suppose, more basic Land Rover Defenders. There is no air suspension in these vehicles. There's a few technology trinkets like the clear sight camera at the rear that we've discussed in the P400 review. But these are, I suppose, much more simplistic and to a degree hardier off-roading specifications. We've got the passive coil-sprung suspension. But the big thing will be to find out whether this P300 really does cut the mustard whenever it comes to doing what Defenders traditionally do best, and that's tackling the rough stuff better than any other off-roading vehicle. Now, of course, true hardcore off-roaders wearing their flak jackets and pulling bits of mud out of their teeth for the rest of the evening will bemoan the fact that this vehicle is not manual. It's got an 8-speed automatic transmission connecting drive to all four wheels, and it does come with a myriad of tech to help out maybe those not so familiar, but it does have the mechanical equipment needed to tackle this terrain. And of course, being a shorter wheelbase 90, the more, I suppose, traditional form factor for a Defender, it's less likely to beach itself as well. And that wheelbase is some 435mm shorter. Now, these more lowly specified Defenders don't feature the full complement of terrain response to and all of its automatic settings, and the fact that, you know, it's the technology that enables a Range Rover to drive over just about anything without the driver needing very much knowledge at all. Whilst the systems are very good at working out what's going on, you have to manually select. So we're going into mud and ruts here just to give the traction control system a bit of an idea of what's going on beneath it. Obviously, one of the trade-offs of coil-sprung suspension in this Defender is obviously we can't raise our ride height. We're at a fixed position, though that does mean there's less technology to get broken when we hit the rough stuff. Ultimately, it means we miss out on about 70mm of ground clearance, though you can fit an optional winch which should pull you out of most sticky situations. Pushing on through the dense forest, our path quickly deteriorated into a deep muddy mess, a traction testing bog that required manual overriding of gearing for optimal torque. Faultlessly and without any signs of struggle, our Defender moved on. A series of slippery and steep inclines required the trusted off-road technique of soaring at the wheel to make use of the added grip from the sidewalls of the tyre. The excellent approach and departure angles of the Defender 90 meant that it was able to clamber up incredibly sheer hillsides, confidently dodging trees in the process. Now, there was a moment where the Defender needed to take a sharp 90-degree left turn while climbing a boggy hillside covered in multiple inches of soft mud. 3 attempts of adding more and more momentum saw my car round the corner, but mysteriously running out of puff immediately after, arresting its progress. Could it be that this Defender was defeated already? Granted, it was on some of the most challenging terrain I'd ever experienced. It turns out no. The solution was to turn off the stability control that was cutting the Defender's power and make another charge in 3rd gear. And just like that, the 4x4 scampered up the course without a care in the world. This is real-world proof that the new Defender doesn't just do it all for you, and that those who love using their off-roading skill still have plenty to exercise here. Entering an undulating wet clay stage, we were reliably informed that this section is where old school Defenders would typically get stuck. The previous method involved lashing a convoy of Defenders together, with this 4x4 powered daisy chain helping pull its classmates out of trouble. Not this time. as one by one our mud-drenched Defender 90s were sent on their way, descending down what felt like a slick chasm into a deep pool of muddy water certainly had me clenched. As the cars plunged into the murky liquid, we were instructed to pause for a second, let the car sink, and then carry on. That's exactly what we did, with the Defender happily sailing on through the deep water without hesitation. When met with an ascent symmetrical to the entry of this pool, only it had been robbed of any small levels of grip it might have possessed by two Defenders ahead of me, I was convinced a winch was going to be needed. However, like an elephant climbing out of a river, the Defender made steady progress up and out of a potentially watery grave. It then did exactly the same again, only 6 times in a row, without fault.
So now that the Defender 90 is now wearing its appropriately muddy attire, to the doubters, shamers, haters, this car is as capable, if not more capable, dare I say it, than the original Land Rover Defender. In our eyes, this is the ultimate stamp of approval for the Defender to carry on roaming our green, pleasant and terribly muddy land.